Maseches Horayos. Maseches Horayos Daf Beis Amud Beis. Today's official Amud is Gimel Amud Aleph, but we are not yet done with Beis Amud Beis. And as you can see on the screen, and you can see by your seats, we have a chart over here. That chart describes the brisa which we're going to learn today. It's a brisa which will be analyzed, flipped over once or twice, and everything will be properly understood. Imil Hashem. This shiur is L'nishmas of Imoyri Menachem ben Akiva and L'nishmas al Michal bas David, Sora bas Moshe, Refuas Tzvi ben Miriam, Shlomo ben Rochel b'soch Shochel Yisrael. Let's go. We are now in Beis Amud Beis, and I would restart from Omer Yehuda Omer Shmuel. Oh, it's quite in the middle of the page. Yeah, we're still in Beis Amud Beis, middle of the page. Line starts with Omer Shmuel, middle of Beis Amud Beis Horayos. Zu divrei Rabbi Yehuda. What does that mean? When we said in the Mishnah that when a person sins according to Beth Din, meaning following the wrong instructions of Beth Din, then this person does not have to bring a korban. This is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda believes that when a person, even individual or koshken, a minority, if they sinned because following Beth Din mistakenly, they don't have to bring a korban. Aval chachomim oimrim, but chachomim say otherwise. What do chachomim say? Yochid shosu boaz Beth Din chayev. Chachomim say if an individual followed Beth Din, or anybody that's less than the majority of the people living in Eretz Yisrael, then that individual, even though he followed instructions, he still has to bring a korban. This is what Rabbi Yehuda hold. This is what chachomim hold. Now the question is, my Rabbi Yehuda, where did you see this Rabbi Yehuda? We're going now. It's very important. Follow my words closely, please, because that would help you much later. Now we're going to see two brises. None of those brises actually are connected to any name of a Tana. They're two anonymous brises. One brisa we connect to Rabbi Yehuda. The other brisa, which is a bit longer and harder, we connect to Chachomim. Okay? Brisa number one. Brisa number one is not in the sheet. Brisa number one is not in the chart. It's easier, this brisa. Let's see brisa number one. The Tanya. If one soul makes a sins bishgogo, mistakenly, while doing so and so, this pasuk has a few extra words. This is Rabbi Yehuda saying that this pasuk that describes the pasuk of nefesh achas techato is not talking about the Beth Din mistake. That is the regular classical pasuk that tells us what? If one person sins because he turned on the light on Shabbos, why? Because he thought it's Sunday. Classical chatas. He ate chaylev thinking it's regular fat. Okay, then there are three exceptions. There are three mi'utim that are taught from this pasuk, and one of those mi'utim are the person who acts upon his own mistake has to bring a korban. That's regular. Which kind of korban does he bring? One regular Joe Schmo thinks that today is Sunday and really it's Shabbos. Oh, it's Shabbos. He has to bring a chatas. What kind of chatas? Made out of which animal? Sheep. She-goat or sheep. Very good. There was Beth Din potu, but he followed the instructions of Beth Din. If Beth Din came and said, this new type of chaylev that just arrived in Israel from South Africa, this chaylev is mutter and really it's ulcer. Beth Din made a mistake and he followed their mistake. He is potur. Very nice. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Now says the Gemara. The second brisa is the one which is in the chart and needs a little bit more of concentration. My Rabbanon. Where did you find that Rabbanon say otherwise? How do you know that Rabbanon hold that an individual who followed Beth Din still has to bring a korban? In our chart, this is number A2. A2, if you follow my numbers and letters, A2. If a minority sinned, and do the people have to bring a korban? Required. Required means yes. If one individual look at column number A, letter A, the column, if the first case is Beth Din, do they have to bring a korban on their own mistake? If it was followed by the minority, no. A Beth Din only has to bring a korban if majority of the people followed the ruling. Then Beth Din has to bring a korban. Which one? Big bull that's brought to the insides of the Beis Hamikdash. However, A2, if the person himself Does the person himself have to bring a korban if the same thing happened? Yes, according to Chachamim, and no, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're learning Chachamim. Yes is required. And that's what we want to say now. The entire Brisa, with all its 6 components, is really brought into the picture because he wants to tell us that an individual who sinned because he followed Beth Din still required to bring a korban. Yeah, Beth Din do not have to, because it's only the minority who follow them, but the minority have to bring either one guy or 3 million guys and girls, whoever. Each one has to bring his own little shepsele, because that's a Chachamim view. How do we know? Oh, now the Brisa is going to elaborate. Listen carefully. The Tanya, says the Brisa. Adain ani omer, Adain means after all said and done, I would still say, miut kol shechotu chayovin. I would say a miut. What's miut? A minority that sinned because of Beth Din, they have to bring a korban. It's required. A2, required. She'ein Beth Din livim al yadayim par, because Beth Din doesn't bring a par. As we said yesterday, Chachamim are quite easy to understand logically. It's a seesaw. Somebody has to bring the korban. It's not a hefkervelt. That's a Chachamim seat. If Beth Din are potter, are exempt because it's only the minority, then who does bring the korban? Thin air, outer space, UFO, well, who has to bring the korban? Each individual by himself. Yeah, okay, I understand that. Now, roiv kol shechotu yupturin. Now comes the last stage, the suggestion. You see, not column, you see line number 3. The Gemara is now suggesting and answering. Very important to follow. The Gemara is suggesting and saying, what happens if the majority of the people sinned? Would we say that they are exempt, question mark? Maybe I would say that they should be really pturin, because we know that in line 1b, in checker 1b, we know that really Beth Din are required to bring a korban if the majority sinned. Well, if Beth Din are required by the same idea of a seesaw, by balance, then the majority of the people are exempt, right? Beth Din brings a korban, I'm scot-free. It's their fault. And they brought the big fat bull to Beis HaMikdash. Then everybody else, or the majority followed them, should be potter, should be exempt. That's what I would say. Aha, says the Brisa, punchline. No, says the Brisa, and we are in B3. Please look at your, good morning, we have a chart over there, yeah? Says the Brisa, Talmud Loima me'am ha'oretz. The pasuk me'am ha'oretz, which is the same pasuk mentioned before, me'am ha'oretz, afilu ruba va'afilu kula. Am ha'aretz comes to include that they are required. The majority, or even the entire nation sinned, they still have to bring a korban. That seems to be the simple explanation of the Brisa, but now the Gemara is going to elaborate on that. So let's, one second. So again, let's summarize. What are we saying here? But the individual is very simple. The individual was untouched. We know that individual or minority, Beth Din don't have to bring a korban. So who has to bring a korban? The people, the minority, very nice. The majority is a red herring over here. The majority is different. Why? In the majority, we know that Beth Din has to bring a korban. So I would say, so the minority, they don't have to bring a korban, right? Kamash malan, that they do. What I'm telling you now is not true according to the Maskono, but this is how the Gemara understands it now. Okay, we are imposing an extra korban on each and every individual of the majority, even though Beth Din also brought, they also have to bring each and every one. It's not true, but this is how we simply understand it right now. I prefer no questions unless they're really, really specific here, but... Back the Gemara, B'mai, line starts with Kula. B'mai, what exactly is the story of this Brisa? Which korban did we talk about? Ilema b'shigegas maise. If you want to tell me, shigegas maise means that this is like line 3, their own shigaga, their own mistake. If you're talking about people's own mistake, the Gemara is now suggesting that we're not talking actually about the majority that have to bring a korban because Beth Din failed them. No. Maybe we're talking about the majority who just made their own mistake. This is a whole new scenario. Let's say majority of the people were misled by the mashgichei kashrus, by themselves, by the media, by the internet, by the whoever, not Beth Din. Beth Din never allowed the chaylev. There was a very large mistake, which sometimes happens in kashrus or in other areas. Everybody thinks that what they did was okay until they had the aha moment, oh no, it's wrong. Okay, maybe this is what the Bryce is talking about. Maybe the Bryce is telling me maybe the Bryce is not talking about a case where Beth Din made the mistake. When we're talking about B3, which is the main chiddush from the words Me'am Ha'oretz, is it exempt? No, they're required. Maybe the requirement of the Rabbi, of the majority to bring a korban, learned from this pasuk, is not talking about the case of Beth Din mistake. When Beth Din made a mistake, only they will bring a korban. But the Rabbi made their own mistake, stam, the people got it wrong. Maybe that is when the Torah requires that each one should bring a korban. Maybe that's a story. If so, Beth Din shaloba was Beth Din, without Beth Din's hoiro, without Beth Din's instruction. If so, Beth Din ma'avidatayu. Or so what do you want from poor Beth Din? This Bryce seems to allege it to Beth Din. Shaloba was Beth Din mimaisu. In other words, you just told me in column B, we're talking about a case B1. Beth Din are required to bring a korban, and in the flip side of the same case, the people still also have to bring a korban. If you want to tell me that this is a mistake done by the people, what do you want from Beth Din? Shtriot. You can't tell me that Beth Din, right, have to pay for people's mistake. They never instructed them otherwise. Hoira does mean Beth Din overlooked. Hoira means the Beth Din told them. Then it just doesn't make sense. Right? And if it was without Beth Din instruction. So therefore, you can't say we're talking about a common mistake done by the people. Ela be'oro would make much more sense to say, like I originally said, case B3, the case that tells you that people do have to bring a korban, it's a special chidush, is telling me be'oro. What does it mean be'oro? Beth Din made a mistake, majority followed them, they fooled everyone by mistake and everyone followed them, and now the Beth Din brings, maybe they're potter, they also have to bring. Okay, that would be nice, that would be okay, like Baruch says, why not, the more the merrier. Beth Din brings a korban, and they also have to bring a korban. I would hear that logic. Beth Din made a mistake, and they also made a mistake. And the people also made the mistake. Don't follow blindly. Everybody together should bring a korban. Beth Din and them. That would be very nice. But there's one problem, as my Rosh Yeshiva always told me. Where is it in the words of the pasuk? Says the Gemara. The Gemara is now killing that option, rejecting it, saying, "V'ho kiksiv me'am ha'oretz." Look at line C3, checker C3. What's the source for the big chiddush that the people, everybody has to bring 6 million or 7 million or 8 million sheep? How do you know that? From the pasuk Me'am ha'oretz. Deflated. Me'am ha'oretz is a pasuk that talks not about Beth Din's mistake. It's a pasuk that talks about people's own mistake, an individual's own individual personal mistake. And if so, you can't say, that this drasha is talking about a mistake of Beth Din. I'm sorry. It would seem very nice in the brisa, it would fit into the brisa, but it's not the source. Source A cannot tell me B. In other words, it sounds like the chiddush of the brisa, the punchline of the brisa, that the rabbim still have to bring a korban, is not talking about Beth Din mistake, it's talking about their own mistake. And it's telling me that they have to bring a korban if majority sinned because of their own mistake, because the internet or the newspapers or the mashgichim told them that it's kosher, or Prince Abela told them it's kosher, Rabbi Elizabeth, it's kosher. Mimela, I would say, maybe they don't have to give. Yes, they do have to give. Okay, yes. If it's urgent, I'm hearing a question. You okay? You okay?
Okay. That's the
No. Beautiful. Now comes the question. Excuse me. Now comes the first question. One doesn't fit into B. Column B1 is checker B1 has nothing to do with B3, which means if you're talking about individual sins, what does it have to do with the price of cheese? You're telling me Beth Din are required to bring a korban, and would they be exempt? No, they're required. Beth Din doesn't have to bring a korban in the case where everyone made their own mistake based on their own shtus that they followed. So something here in the brisa doesn't fit in. Something here doesn't match. Now the Gemara is going to give the secret. Now we're coming to the conclusion. Don't worry. Now we're coming to safe shore. Elo means a whole new understanding. Lav, hachi ka'oma. This must be what the brisa is saying. Listen carefully, and it's very simple. I'll give you a tiny introduction. Remember what Abai said at the end of Baba Basra? He said, the poor man, poverty always follows him, which means even if two things are not connected, but if the same person has like bad luck, the same bad luck will always follow him. What does that have to do with us? Many times, certain halachas or situations, we see that the Torah is being lenient about them in one way. We assume the Torah will also be lenient another way. Get what I'm saying? We label the person and we say, if you are machmir him in one thing, probably is going to have a chumrah also in another aspect, a different story. That's exactly what happens in our brisa. And says the Gemara, line starts with ka'omal. Yeah, as we're progressing, Baruch Hashem, then with ka'omal. Now comes the very simple explanation of the brisa. A whole new reading of the brisa is nice and sweet. Mi'ut kol shechotu. Case number A, column A, the minority rights. The miut kol shechotu b'shigigas maise chayovin. A2 means, A3. If a person or 49 or even 50% of the population sinned b'shigigas maise. Shigigas maise means their own mistake. What happens if 1 or 2 or 3 million people, each one, by his own mistake, turn on the light on Shabbos or ate chaylev? Beth Din are not involved. What do we say? Chayavin. Of course, each one has to bring his own shepsele. And now we also reinforce it, because we also know, now we're connecting the two things. Had it been a mistake of Beth Din, even then we would say that they have to bring a korban, right? Let's say Beth Din misled one guy or 2 guys or 3 guys, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Shprinza Be'ela. Do the individuals have to bring a korban? Yes.
According to this brisa.
We are in this brisa. Thank you. That's the whole word of this brisa is A2, meaning individuals. That's this brisa. Shkoyach. Individuals who followed Beth Din mistakenly still have to bring their own korban. All the more so if Beth Din were bechlal not involved and you stupidly followed the rabbi internet in something I don't know where. Of course you have to bring your own korban, Mr. Individual. That's not even a question. Hahen chayovin. Of course they are required to bring their own korban. Always the individuals. This is individual. Now let's move to column B. Says the brisa. Yachol roiv tzibur she'asu. What happens with the majority who made their own mistake? She'asu b'shigigas maise yupturin? Question mark. B3 exempt. Maybe you want to tell me that the majority who actually, what about the majority? They sinned because of their own mistake. 5 million people were all misled by some silver-tongued politician, Haredi, and he said you're allowed to eat the chaylev, okay? Let's say, okay? Everyone followed the politician who said it's allowed, okay? Let's say. Then what do we say? Maybe they should be exempt. Why should be exempt? Because in a parallel case, in B2 or B1, we see that Beth Din brings a korban. If Beth Din misled the tzibur, the majority, the kahal, then the kahal is exempt. Yeah, B2. If so, maybe in B3, when they actually made the mistake on their own accord, maybe they should also be exempt. Maybe, this is what I said before, maybe we label the tzibur, people over 50% of the population, maybe in both cases are exempt. Both if Beth Din are involved and also Beth Din is not involved. It's avamina. Maybe when the majority already sins, it's beyond individual and there are no individuals korbanos brought. Talmud loyma mama oretz afilu comes the pasuk mama oretz, which talks about the individual sins and tells you, individual doesn't mean 1 or 2 or 3. Individual can be 9 million Jews, 10 million Jews, yeah, and they all bring each one his own little korban because the Torah says that people upon their own mistake, if you made your own small mistake personally, even though there are 10 million other people who also made the same mistake, you still have to bring your individual korban. End of brisa. This is what Brisa says. So let's summarize. Really, the chiddush of the Brisa is not about Beth Din. Really, the chiddush of the Brisa is about who? About people's own mistake. And we say that if the rabbim, the individuals, I'm not making a mistake now. The many individuals, it could be the entire nation, but it's individual kind of mistake, meaning Beis Din are not involved. If Beis Din are not involved, you have nobody to blame. I'm so sorry. We like to blame others all the time. Nobody to blame. Blame yourself and blame the stupid idiot you followed, your own mistake, or the butcher who lied to you. And what do we say? Mama Oretz. Each and every one has to bring his own korban, although in the case of Beis Din, which is B2, the Rabbim are exempt. If Beis Din misled them, that's Beis Din. But when really they made their own mistake, not Beis Din-based mistake, then they all have to bring a korban because there's a special pasuk for that. This is how we learn the brisa. One thing we have to understand here, the entire brisa was only brought for A2, meaning to tell me, the brisa said, al haderech, as the brisa was conversing with us, the brisa says that if individual or minority followed Beis Din, they still have to bring a korban. Yeah? And this is what we want to get out of this brisa. Rabbi Yehuda says that really, look at the notes, by the way, the annotations, the footnotes in the bottom, footnote 2 tells you what I told you. I don't know who wrote that footnote, yeah. Yeah, the footnote says that this is opinion of Rabbanon. And Rabbi Yehuda says that individuals who follow Beis Din, minority who follow Beis Din, are exempt. And Chachamim say that they are required. That's A2, and this is what we're looking for. Now Rav Papa is going to attack the brisa or its explanation, and then we'll see further. Okay, question time?
Wait, no.
Yeah,
Wait,
what's the question now?
Because
Let's continue now. Omar Papa, line starts with the word Omar Reish Pei. Omar Papa. Rav Papa now wants to challenge the way we understood the brisa. Omar Papa, Mimai, how do you know from this brisa, how do you know that an individual following Beis Din has to bring a korban? The brisa never said it outright. If you read carefully the brisa, we deducted it from the brisa. The Amoraim who introduced the brisa to us, but the brisa never actually said it. Look look at Rav Papa's way of reading it. Dilma, maybe lohen v'lo Beis Din. When we said Beis Din or potter, that is to say that if the minority followed Beis Din does not have to bring. That's the only thing we said. And also the individuals don't have to bring. Like Rabbi Yehuda, nobody has to take the blame. It's a mistake followed by minority, nish gefährlich, not so bad, and nobody has to bring a korban. Maybe because the brisa never said outright, mefurash, square A2, checker A2 is what we deduct from the brisa or deduce from the brisa. It's not something mentioned with the brisa. That's what Rabbi wants to say. So your whole thought, your whole idea that Chachamim required an individual to bring a korban, how do you know it's true? Says the Gemara, Yochi, if so, it's true that it's not written, but then the logic of the brisa would not be logical anymore. If so, why are you mehader? Why are you looking for? Why are you running away and looking at the majority to say that they're chayiv? To give me a chiddush, the majority, I would have said that exempt. No, they're chayiv. I could have done exactly the same thing by the individual, according to your logic. Lav michlal must be the miut b'hoiro, kaimele the michayvu b'hoiro. Must be that we learned that in the case of hoiro, which is case number 1 and 2, when they followed Beis Din, must be, we know, that the individual is the one that is required to bring a korban. Now the Gemara is going to explain what it said now to elaborate. The nehadar bereish al miuta de michay b'shigigas ma'aseh, well b'sof nehadar al ruba lechiyuva b'shigigas ma'aseh, which means, if you want to tell me that both minority and majority, look at line 2. Line 2 for beginning to end. If you want to tell me line 2 are exempt and exempt, that's what he wants to say. If you want to tell me that both individual and majority, everybody are exempt if Beis Din misled them, if so, what's the difference between minority and majority? Why is it only that we focus on majority? Said, how do you know majority have to bring? Oh, there's a pasuk that tells me about the majority. You want to equalize majority and minority and say that they're the same. The both in case of Beis Din, both are exempt. If so, there should also be a havamina, a question, there should be exempt also the minority. Why are you jumping to the majority? Because you're not mehadar al miut, you're not talking about the miut. The brisa left miut alone, he left the minority alone. Must be the archayev. You know why? Because clear to us that checker A3 is true. We knew that they are required to bring a korban on their own mistake, because even in the case of Beis Din, as I told you before, more. Because the case of Beth Din, I followed Beth Din, screams Mr. Individual and 49% of humanity of Jews. And we still say, you're required to bring a korban. Kol sheken, if they made their own mistake, they really can't blame anybody. Of course they have to bring a korban. That's why we never question them. At the end of the Raisa, we see only on the Roiv, and the majority is when we had the question, yes, no, maybe so. Said, the majority, really, I assume they should be exempt. Why did they assume they should be exempt? Because I know in the case of their own mistake, because in the case of Beth Din's mistake, they also were potter. I would project it, reflect it further on case B3, that what? They should be exempt also when they made their own mistake. Very good. We know for sure from that the maskono. If it's a minority, when it's their own, if it's if they followed based in mistake, they still have to bring their own individual korban. And this is the sheet of Chachamim A2. Each one has to bring his own shepsala, even if 50% of the population followed based in. End of story. And if it is really their own mistake, not based in connected, all the more so for sure, each one has to bring his own korban. Let's summarize. Again, this is the opinion of Chachamim. The Raisa is following Chachamim. Although we don't know, that's what we assume now. This is how we're going to stay at the end. The Raisa follows Chachamim. What do Chachamim say? They say very simple. In the case of Beth Din, somebody has to take the buck. We're not in a hefker welt, as I was told as a child, nicht hefker welt, right? What's the story with Chachamim? Somebody has to take, there's a balance. Somebody has to bring a korban, yeah? Rabbi, that we know that. If Beth Din made the kahal, the word kahal is going to appear many times in our Masechet. Kahal means congregation, people, crowd, a lot of people. That is the majority of the people. Says the Torah, if Beth Din misled the kahal, meaning 51% or 50.0.1, yeah, over 50%, we say what? Beth Din have to take the buck, they have to bring the big bull. And the people, scot-free. The people don't have to bring anything. Okay, now the minority, if Beth Din ruled, but the ones who followed them were individuals or minority, 50% only or less, who has to bring the korban according to Chachamim? Not both. According to Chachamim, who has to bring it? The minority, the people. Beth Din are scot-free, Beth Din wash their hands, and because the Torah says kahal, this is not a kahal. Minority is not a kahal. Minority are not called kahal, and therefore the Beth Din are exempt, and the people have to bring each one to Beis HaMikdash, make a beeline to Beis HaMikdash, each one with his sheep. I'm joking, not a beeline, could be different days. Now, one second. What happens now? Our Brisa comes and tells us a punchline. What happens if the mistake was not Beth Din related? Was just people made their own mistake. By Yechidim, if it's a few people, a minority, of course each one has to bring his own. Avada. The Chiddush is a majority. If it's their own mistake and not based in mistake, they cannot say, no, because we're exempt. In case of Beth Din, we're exempt now too. No, the Torah says, Ma'ama Oretz. If the mistake is your own mistake, Mr. Majority, Mr. and Mr. and Mr. and Mrs. and all people, you have to bring each one his own korban. It's required because this is not a Beth Din related story. Leave Beth Din alone. They're not involved. You didn't follow Beth Din. You followed Stam, your own shtuyot, and therefore you have to bring your own korban. That's the whole story. Isn't that simple and easy and sweet and nice? This is what we say. Now, this is the opinion of who? Of Chachamim. They say that if an individual sinned based on Beth Din, he does have to bring a korban. Rabbi Yehuda is the one from the first brisa, which had 3 miutim, and 1 miut told me, no, an individual who followed Beth Din, if they don't bring a korban, neither does he. Nobody brings. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Very good. Beautiful. Baruch Hashem. Yes. Okay. Question, and then we continue. Okay. Weiter. Continues the Gemara. Now the Gemara says the follows. Michdi, 2 lines, the penultimate line of the page. Michdi, middle of the page, middle of the line. Michdi, at the end of the day, Tarvayu stamitnan. Both brises are stama, which means both brises are anonymous. Both brises are not actually mentioned with any name. There are no names mentioned in any of the brises. If so, how do you know the first brise is Rabbi Yehuda and the second one is Rabbanon? That's a guess game. Who told you to allege one to the other? How do you know? Answers the Gemara, Excuse me. The Gemara asks this question, maybe the other way. Maybe the first one's Rabban, the second one's Rabbi Yehuda. Who told you? You're a prophet? Answers the Gemara, no. I'll tell you how I know. I know it by the style of the brises. If you're an Amoira, you know to detect different styles. A very literate person who likes good literature will tell you, take a book, and he will tell you who the writer is by the style of the writing, right? This is the style of this author, that's the style of the other writer. The one who darshans 3 different miutim in a row from 3 words, like a whole series of boom, 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 miut, 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 3 miutim that are so close together, that style is Rabbi Yehuda. And this is what he did in the first brisa. The Tanya, as we see in the brisa in a different place, Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, Rabbi Yehuda has another brisa, we're in Gimel Amud Aleph, we're starting today's Amud. Rabbi Yehuda says, Zois Torah Sa'oilo. About the oilo, the beginning of Chumash Vayikra, it says, Zois Torah Sa'oilo, this is the Torah, this is the Torah of the oilo, of the Korban oilo, ha'oilo, ha'elu shloisha miutin. Over there about oilo, I'm not going to details now, from 3 different words that are adjacent, and not everyone would actually be Dorish Miutim that dense, that close together. Rabbi Yehuda does. Rabbi Yehuda is very much into learning miut, 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 boom, 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 one after the other, just like he did it by Oilo, also he does it over here by us. It's a very similar style brisa. That's why I connect the first brisa, which had 3 close by miutim, to Rabbi Yehuda as well. V'bai Sema, and another alternative way, and a stronger one, why we connect the second brisa to Chacham Imanot Rabbi Yehuda. Adayin ani Oimer, the second brisa, whose title is Adayin ani Oimer, Loi Matzis Mukmas Lok Rabbi Yehuda. This brisa cannot be Rabbi Yehuda. This brisa cannot possibly be authored by Rabbi Yehuda. You know why? The Ktani, it says in the brisa, Roiv Kol Shechotu, Bezin Mevim Liden Par, right? We said that the majority sinned. Who brings the korban if the majority sinned? Rabbi Yehuda. Who brings the korban? Well, who brings it? The Beth Din. The Beth Din brings it. The Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're in for a surprise. The formula I told you up until now is not wrong, but Rabbi Yehuda has a different take on it, similar to what Ellen was suggesting before. Listen to what Rabbi Yehuda says. In the last Mishnah of our parak, Rabbi Yehuda says the follows: the Omar Tzibahu demaisi Beth Din loy. Wow, Rabbi Yehuda says, if the majority sinned by Beth Din, they're the ones who have to bring a korban and not the Beth Din. Wow. How do we know that? Listen carefully. Detnan, it says in the last Mishnah of the Perek, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shiva Shvatim Shechotu. Let's say 7 tribes sinned. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Gad, Binyamin, let's say, yeah? Mevin Shiva Porim. Each tribe brings 1 par, 1 bull. And by the way, the same is for 12 tribes. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, similar to your idea, that when the majority sinned, when majority of people or minority sinned, and they followed Beth Din, kahal. What's called kahal? Very nice. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it means shevet. He learns 1 shevet is called kahal. And therefore, says Rabbi Yehuda, there's like in-between solution. If everybody followed Beth Din's mistake, let's say, then the Shiva Shvatim, they have to bring 7 different bulls. Excuse me, not the minority. Minority are potter, excuse me, according to Rabbi Yehuda. But majority, 7, 8, 9, all the way to 12, then each Shevet has to bring 1 bull to represent the entire Shevet. The head of the tribe, I guess they'll chip in with the money. The whole of Gad, they bring 1. The whole of Dan, 1. The whole of Naphtali, 1. Whichever one sinned, the majority of that Shevet, of each Shevet, or the entire Shevet, each Shevet, each tribe has to bring his own. And that is true also if the majority sinned by Beth Din, then they are not exempt. They're not exempt. They have to bring the korban. They themselves have to bring the korban. But what kind of korban? Brought by the people, not by the Beth Din. They bring Shiva Porim. And Beth Din are exempt. Not six. No, 7 is the majority of 12.
No, it begins with 6, 7, 8, 9.
No, in this case, no, I stand by what I'm saying. There are 2 types of roiv. Either roiv of the population, 50% plus 1 person, that's a different one. Or, according to me, you go by shvatim. And therefore, by shvatim, 6 is not majority of 12. The only 12 tribes. 6 is half. No, not 6.5. No, it's not minority. I shouldn't say minority. It means non-majority. No, he sees 6, although it's half-half, it's still minority. In other words, only when the 7 tribes sinned, then each one, then we start talking. But who has to bring the korban? Not the Beth Din. If they followed Beth Din, then they, who's they? The Shvatim. Each Shevet, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 Shvatim, they all have to bring, each Shevet has to bring his power.
It had to be 12.
And it could even be 12, yes. Yes, I saw the Mishnah.
It's kahal, isn't it?
Kahal is a tribe.
Sheva is only majority. It's not kahal. It's not.
No, it's still kahal. Majority is also kahal. Majority is also kahal, but who brings it? The kahal, meaning the Shvatim. I didn't explain it. 1 second, please. The pasuk says kahal, meaning the kahal has to bring. Who's the kahal that has to bring? Chachamim say the kahal means Beth Din. Kahal means everybody, majority, and also Beth Din themselves are called kahal because they represent the nation. Mimele Beth Din has to bring from their own pockets. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Yehuda says kahal means the Shvatim themselves have to bring the korban. So therefore the brisa doesn't fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Now we know Rabbi Yehuda cannot be the brisa because Rabbi Yehuda says kahal that brings it are the Shvatim. If more than 50% sinned, I stand by what I'm saying, more than 50% of the Shvatim sinned, okay, so no. I know that 50% is not, I'm not that bad in math. 50% is not minority, not majority, I know. And yet, I'm telling you that 50% in the eyes of halacha here is called minority. I know what I'm saying. 50% for our purposes is called minority because it's not the majority. Only over 50% shvatim-wise, which I know is 7, is the one who has to bring the bulls. Beforehand, nobody has to bring anything. There's not math here, it's halacha. What? Rabbi Yehuda says it's shvatim, not individual. The shvatim, the individual doing the shvatim. And any will be discussed at the end of the parak.
Start counting with 7. With 6, sorry. 6 and 7.
True, but if it's only 6, they don't have to bring. You count by 6, very nice. You can count wherever you want. But 6 shvatim sin, they don't have to bring. Nobody has to bring. That's Rabbi Yehuda. I'd like to continue. We're a little bit short in time. Now, Rav Nachman Omer Shmuel. Now, Rav Nachman, on behalf of Shmuel, as a whole different suggestion regarding our Mishnah. How did this whole discussion start? The Mishnah started off by saying that an individual who sinned upon Beth Din is potul, true, is exempt. Who is the author of the Mishnah? We said it's Rabbi Yehuda. And Chachamim argue. Now, Rav Nachman Omer Shmuel, Zodivrei Rabbi Meir. He wants to allege our Mishnah to Rabbi Meir. He wants to connect our Mishnah that said what? That the minority who followed Beth Din, the minority is exempt, is Rabbi Meir. Aval Chachamim oimrim, Yochid Shotz was Beth Din chayev. Chachamim say no. Individuals, minority who followed Beth Din are exempt. Oh, then they are chayev. And who's the one? Who's now in the box? Who's in the box? Who's in the hot seat? Who is our Mishnah that exempts the individual? Who is that? It's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Meir. My Rabbi Meir, my Rabbanon, says the Gemara, which Rabbi and which Rabbanon? Please Google for me Rabbi Meir and Rabbanon that you're looking for. The Tanya. Look at the following brisa, very easily phrased brisa, but this brisa is going to have many different explanations. Hoiru ve'osu. Beth Din hoy, what hoiru? Instructed, paskened, ve'osu, and they did it. Rabbi Meir poiter, Rabbi Meir exempts, v'chami mechayvin. It's a very, very enigmatic brisa. The brisa says again, if they, I don't know who's they instructed, okay, I guess it's Beth Din, and they did it, they did the sin, they transgressed, then what do we say? Rabbi Meir exempts, and chachamim mechayev, require. Now, the question is, who is the one who did the sin? And who is potter? And who's they? My also, let's see. It's not so simple. Who are the ones who followed? Ilema Beth Din. If you want to tell me, not like you're saying, maybe Beth Din are the ones who followed their own ruling. Maybe Beth Din have instructed, and Beth Din followed their own rule. If so, my Tamad Rabbanon the Mechayvi. Rabbanon are Mechayv the Beth Din to bring a korban of Tzibul, the big bull. Only if they're the only people who follow their own psak. The Paskin Chelev is okay, and then the Chelev party, 71 people. and they're Yerushalayim people, and nobody else followed them. You understand? They have to bring a bull. Shtiyot, excuse me, nonsense. But it says right in the Brisa, Yochel Haru Beth Din ve'osu Beth Din. If Beth Din are the only ones who follow their own instructions, Yochel Yuchayovin, maybe they too have to bring a korban for that because they're a bad example for the tzibur or something. Talmud lo yomar. What's the magic word? Kahal kadosh. In Gibraltar, they always say kahal kadosh. Kahal ve'osu. Kahal ve'osu. Maaseh tolui bekahal. The maaseh is the one that, in order for the korban to be brought, you need two ingredients in your recipe. You need maaseh from the kahal side. The kahal, the regular folks, the regular people in the street, the kahal, they followed. Ve'hoira tlui beBeis Din. The hoira is in Beis Din. That's always the regular classical formula we know for a long time already, from the beginning of the week, is what? The Beis Din instructed, no questions now, Beis Din instructed, people followed, 1 + 1 equals big bull korban. Ella, right? So therefore you can't tell me that Beis Din followed their own thing. That's nothing. What would they have to bring? What would they have to bring? Which korban? No! Excuse me. I'm getting angry in YouTube. Individual. Chatas regular. 71. They're not kahal. The Beis Din are not kahal for that purpose. They're not the majority of the people, with all due respect. They're so narcissist. There's 71 people. They instructed, and who followed them? They have to bring each one a little shepsel, a female. That's all.
Instead of the bull?
Of course. The bull is only brought if the majority of the people follow them. And hey, they didn't. Nobody followed them except for them. Maybe there's no time. Maybe they realized the mistake early enough. Maybe the people are not trustworthy of Beis Din. I don't know why. But the Beis Din are the only ones. It's like 71 people who made a mistake. So 71 female sheep will be brought to Beis Mikdash morning later. Ella, maybe if I scream on YouTube, we'll bring more people to the screaming rabbi, advertise me. A screaming rabbi from Bet Shemesh, which make big headlines. Ella must be what? Let's reinterpret the Brisa. Hoiru Beis Din ve'osu roiv kahal. Back to the good old ways. Must be the Brisa spoke about the nice, classical, regular case. Beis Din instructed. 51% followed them, and all very nice. Is it nice? If so, my time. Line starts with the word my timer. My time is Rabbi Meir the Poiter. How come Rabbi Meir would say Potter? Why Potter? Who's Potter? Of course, they have to bring a korban, a bull, avada. The majority followed them. They instructed. In my book, it says, I follow the Bible, the Old Testament. It says they have to bring a pal, right? Mapitom to say otherwise. Yeah, how can Rabbi Meir say other things? Elalav must be what? Hoyu Beis Din ve'osu miut kahal. We found the formula we're looking for. Beis Din instructed. You know who is asu? Who followed them? Minority or 50%. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, 50% followed them. And now there is a good, valid argument between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. Now we're talking Masova Yochid Shotzabo as Beis Din Potu. The one who is Rabbi Meir Poiter. Rabbi Meir says a minority individuals who followed Beis Din up to 50%, including 50%, they don't have to bring a korban, as we saw in the Mishnah. Nobody has to bring. Don't blame not Chachamim, Beis Din, and not him. Umar Sova, but Chachamim say Nishtazo. Somebody has to pay the price. Say Chachamim. Somebody has to take responsibility. Yochid Shosabaz Beis Din Chayev. Chachamim say Nisht. Chachamim say, like Chachamim always said, they're consistent in both shittas, that a minority or individuals who followed Beis Din, and the Beis Din made a mistake, but only minority followed, the Beis Din are exempt, and the people who follow them are chayev. And that's what it means also. This is this Brisa. Omar Rav, quick question, okay? I'm okay with a quickie, because we're about to finish. Weiter. Omar Rav Pope. Now again, Rav Pope wants to say, to again throw a work in the spanner. Now Rav Pope wants to suggest that maybe this Bryce is talking about something else. The Kula Alma, Rav Pope says no, maybe it's all different story. Yeah, the Kula Alma, everyone agrees he's trying to reinterpret the Bryce in a different way to the way we interpret it. Maybe the Kula Alma Yochid Shozbo Be'oros Beis Din Potu. Yeah, maybe really a Yochid, an individual, or up to 50% who follow Beis Din. Maybe everyone agrees are Potur. Everyone agrees on Potter. Maybe both Rabbanan and Rabbi Meir. If so, what is the Brisa talking about? Ella, this is your case, Baruch. Beis Din mashlim lo tzibur kamiflagi. Wow. There's a question. What happens if 50% of the population sinned, or a bit less than 50, and together with the 71 zakenim, that makes it into 50 plus 1. The Dayanim themselves, they tilt the scale. They're the tiebreakers. The Dayanim 8, together with, let's say, 49%, together they just about make it over the 50%, but the one who broke the tie are based in themselves. That's a machloikas. Apparently, that is itself, that could be the disagreement here. Masov are based in mashlim lo of tzibu, meaning, what's the osu? Based in are the ones who did it. And now, Chachamim say they have to bring a korban. Who? The Beis Din have to bring the big bull, the korban of the tzibur, because the kahal that was created by folks and Beis Din, they're the ones who created the majority together, they're considered a kahal, and therefore in this case we say mashlim, and the Beis Din have to bring a korban. That's chachamim. Umar sovar, which is Rabbi Meir, that says poiter and Beis Din mashlim l'rov tzibur. He says no, the Beis Din are not mashlim to the tzibur. The Beis Din really are not Beis Din, are Beis Din and kahal, because there are two types of people. Yeah, there's a drasha which I think the Gemara says later on. I think at the end, or well, let me see over here. I think it says here. There is. Okay. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No. I think the Gemara later on explains why. But at the end of the day, the Shvatim, the 50% plus Beis Din, according to Rabbi Meir, they do not create a majority. That's why they're potter. You have to have over 50% of who? Of regular people are not Beis Din. This is what Rabbi Meir learns. V'boy Seima. Now, another third explanation. Oh, we have time or no? No, we don't. So let's finish here. We'll finish here. We're not doing the Amud, but Baruch Hashem, I'm very impressed with what's going on over here. It looks like people are holding, and it's a difficult Masechta, and I'm extremely happy with you people. Amazing, terrific. I hope everyone enjoys us also on YouTube. 2 million views in a second. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.